Hello and welcome back to the My Journey podcast, episode 10. Yes, that's right, we've made it to double figures. So, what's happened since last time? Well, some pretty good news. The episode with Drew Povey crept into the top 100 podcast episodes in the UK careers chart. It would definitely be an understatement to say that I was happy with that. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who has listened to that episode. Who knows? Hopefully we can see that happen with more episodes in the future. Anyway, less about what has happened and more about what we're here for. Today's guest. This is an interview with Glenn Fisher. Glenn is an Amazon best-selling author and host of the All Good Copy podcast, which has an upcoming sold-out show in London. And day to day, Glenn is a copywriter. So here goes episode 10 of the My Journey podcast with Glenn Fisher. So welcome to the My Journey podcast, Glenn Fisher. You're here today to speak at C4DI where I'm based, all about copywriting.
Yeah.
So we're going to go right back to the beginning as we do with all our guests and start with education. How was school life for you? Did you know that what you've ended up doing, being a copywriter, was what you wanted to do?
Not at all. School life for me, how far are we going back? Nursery, I was a very, my school life, when I kind of had that conscious decision of what to do in life, when you start seeing the careers advisor and you do your work placements and stuff like that, for me it was all business / banking for some reason. For some reason, I say this, I'm the only 15-year-old I've ever known who wanted to be a bank manager when they grow up. I don't think anyone has that ambition. And it wasn't even to have loads of money, it was the admin that I liked for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, so I was kind of loosely, I think I enjoyed business studies, maybe at like GCSE, and thought, right, I'll go down that route. All my friends were, ironically now looking back and where we are now, but all my friends were quite English literature based, so they were all reading Orwell and Ulysses and stuff like that, and all the kind of classics, and I enjoyed that, but I didn't really understand that stuff at the time and felt it was above me somehow, and I don't know why, and I will hold that because obviously that comes back into my more literary career later on. But at that time I was a business guy and I was doing that, and I got a work experience in TSB and what have you, did all that, did business studies, did economics, did politics. Had a rough idea. My mum had always worked in the local council, so I knew nepotism could get me in there somewhere as like an entry level, just in case there was any problems with my grades. But yeah, so I was kind of going in that direction. I didn't want to go to university. There was kind of 4 of us in a peer group at the time. 2 of us were definitely kind of literary and going into academia. 2 of us were, one of us was an engineer, and I was kind of going to get a council job. And so we did that, and I got a job in the council, and kind of followed that natural thing. So all my education, part 1, because I obviously quit and then went back to study creative writing, but part 1 was all business orientated, and as I say, I'd like writing at that time, though I was very aware of literature and enjoyed it, I felt like the other guys, my friends, they were like real literature buffs, so I didn't quite know what was going on. I also thought all books had to be 1984. I didn't realise you could write comedy stuff and all that kind of stuff, which is what got me into writing later on. But I thought everything had to be serious and like dystopian and like serious. So that was like first part of my education, and it was all guided on getting me into a job that would allow me to achieve 2.4 children, mortgage on the house, live your life, done and dusted, nice one. I had no one had said, actually, you're a creative genius and you should be doing this or what have you. It's just, yeah, that sounds good, nice one, go and do that. That's bureaucracy, has your name on it, good luck.
I was going to say, it probably sounds like you were the career advisor's dream, and the fact that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I look back on it now, and without being too kind of, I don't know, idealistic or political or what have you, but But I just think, actually, what a letdown. Now, I had some great teachers, and I've got nothing against some of the best teachers I've had, and the education system was good in the sense that I enjoyed it, and I participated, and I was part of a good group of kids and everything. But when I look at it, where I am now, and what I do, and how I make far more money, not that it's about the money, and we'll get into that kind of thing, but the pleasure I derive from my job, what is my job, I don't know, but all of that stuff, no one in that world told me that this was even a choice, let alone identify whether I was the right kind of kid to do that. Weirdly, I found my national record of achievement. We're just moving house at the moment, so I was going through the boxes in the attic of stuff that you've had in the attic for 5 years and not touched. So it's like, well, this really needs to prove its worth if it's going to come with us. And I found my record of achievement, and I was reading through the reports of that time. So when I was like, 15, 16, 17, I don't know how timing works, and it kind of alluded to me having some creative grounding and being a bit weird and a bit silly, and the traits that I see are me now.
Yeah.
And I think, because I always kind of forgive the education system for not noticing that in me, because I thought I was this driven, businessy, let's get to the council kind of guy. But actually, maybe I was more creative and weirder. We used to do some very strange stuff. I played music all the time during school, so we definitely had the thing. We were skateboarders. We went full swaps. We were a bit weird and alternative. So actually, I now look back and think, well, actually, you didn't spot those qualities in me, and I had to do, 5 years of like dull monotony. Apologies to anybody who still does that dull monotony, but for me, it was like, actually, I've wasted 5 years. Like, if I had been doing this now, I could have been 5 years ahead. Or more zen looking at it without understanding that world and without seeing that option, I probably wouldn't enjoy and respect what I do as much now, and appreciate what I do now. So.
And you mentioned there that you did have other creative outlets.
Yeah, we were always, like these days, I do very silly things, and I try and add an element of fun to everything I do. And so it's not just like dry, this is how you do copywriting and all this kind of stuff. And I try and be silly. And then actually, when you look back at it, we were in like the local paper, because at sixth form we did tomato rolling to raise money for charity. And I can remember we used to have a game in the sixth form common room where we were like flapping rulers to get stuff across the room. I dressed up on fancy dress day as the deputy head and started signing the register board as him. So to the point where he double took when he came in to do that himself, and he was already there as far as he was concerned. We dealt drugs outside the sixth form, but they were vitamin C and ginkgo biloba, and we got called into the sixth form head of year, saying, why are two of the best students in the year dealing drugs? And it was like, because it's good. It's good for people. And they're like, what are you talking about? How can you do this? And we were dealing vitamin C. So we were very silly and immature. To this day, we still are as a group. But yeah, I just think that's interesting that actually, when I think back, they didn't spot that.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning about kind of whether people spot what you can do in education, and I'm not sure the system quite worked for us at that point. But.
So did any of your friends identify a creative career path?
Yeah, they're all clowns. They're all professional clowns. No, no. The main peer group, I guess, a couple of them were like just academic. Okay. They're going to be in academia forever, and they were very clear. They came from quite teacherly families and stuff, and they've gone on to do very well, teaching around the country and at various different levels. My other friend, the one who kind of decided with me we were not going to pursue that because we were stupider, we kind of went into the world of work, still successful and what have you. But yeah, so we knew everybody seemed to follow the right path. And as I say, my path, that's where I wanted. It wasn't like I was going, I want to be a creative, I want to do copywriting or anything like that. I didn't know what the hell copywriting was and had no idea. But I didn't even want to write. It wasn't a thing that I was aware of. As I say, I thought every book had to be 1984. So we kind of, in that respect, everybody got where they were. I was just, a late bloomer or something to figure out, oh, actually, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. So.
Just on that point of, you didn't know what copywriting was, and that's a big thing, is like a lot of people don't understand what careers are out there. But working with a couple of copywriters at C4DI, and that, it's quite interesting how many people still don't
Oh, yeah,
know
no, I
what
mean, I thought about this the other day. I was walking my dog back, and I can't remember why. It's a constant question, but someone had emailed me asking, oh, we need some copywriting and content services doing. And that's the biggest problem, is that without getting too niche, it's between what is copywriting, what is content writing, what is journalism, what is thing. There's so many elements to it, and it can't really be defined in an overall term of copywriting.
And also within wider than marketing as well. I speak to people and say copywriting, and they think we're protecting their intellectual property.
Yeah, that was the first thing that a lot of people. When I first discovered copywriting, I mean, I was employed as a copywriter, and I didn't know what I was doing for a year, so I couldn't have defined it. But yeah, it's a weird. No one's really bothered. It's perhaps the most ironic thing that a bunch of writers can't define a thing with words. But yeah, it's just hard. It's so embedded in like the word copy to describe writing. It comes from like that journalistic background, copying and what have you. So a piece of copy is the words, but then copywriter has been loosely associated within advertising and the David Ogilvy worlds of right to sell, and copywriting is like the right to sell element. So therefore, a blog post, some people I know, hardcore copywriters, will say that's not copywriting. But then if you've got a call to action in the blog post saying go and sign up to my ELA, that is essentially a piece of copywriting in the sense to sell. So it's really ridiculous. I think is probably the wrong question to ask, because so many people do. They say, "Oh, what is Well, it's not really relevant. What do you want it to do? What do you want these words to do?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Is the output therefore a piece of copywriting? Is it a piece of content? Is it a piece of thing?" That's kind of the media. It's not really important what that is. Am I in advertising, marketing, or copywriting? I have no idea. I always say what I do is about ideas, and it's coming with ideas and expressing them in the best way. Sometimes we'll do that with words. Sometimes we'll do it with images, videos, whatever you want to do. So it's a hard and silly debate.
So going back to you coming out of your education, you went into the council where you were an auditor, I believe.
I was an auditor. Yeah, I did a few kind of odd jobs and worked in school services first. Then I went into housing benefits, and that was fun, going down the docks and looking for fraudsters. And like people say, I've got a broken leg, and then the hauling fish in and all this kind of stuff. And that was some weird moral stuff going on there, sat with the fraud squad. But yeah, I did all that, and then I became an auditor, and that was the kind of main job that I did for a while. And studied a bit of accountancy, started taking my accountancy qualification at that point. And
did you enjoy it at first?
At first I did, yeah. I was wearing the suit. I was a young guy. It was quite unique, really. It's quite a strange thing because I was very young for that particular job, I guess. I was going into schools to audit their finances, and people, I didn't look much older than the kids, kind of thing. So it was a bit weird, but quite fun, going into all the different elements of the council. And I was mentioning we were just moving house. We were talking about building regulations and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I just thought, I audited the building regulations department, and I've completely forgotten about that thing. But I did European grants, I did loans and investments. At the time, it was when kind of North East Lincolnshire Council, which I worked for. I think they were it was when some terrible financial crisis was going on. I don't think it was the 2008 one, it would have been before that. But money had been lost from Iceland or something like that. And then I suddenly realised that was the bits that I was looking at. So it was it was interesting, it was weird and cool for a little bit, but then I kind of saw the monotony, and that's unfair, but something was wrong. I didn't enjoy it as much as I should be doing. I didn't fancy doing it for another 50 years, put it that way.
Yeah, and you went from there to go back to education to study.
Yeah, so I'm still to this day working out the true motivation and what I did.
Oh, that was going to be my question.
Yeah, I can't remember. I remember the councils generally seem to be on a rota system where every 5 to 10 years they have like this crises and they have to sack everyone and make everybody redundant and then start again. And I think it's probably something just everybody washes their hands and goes, oh, they did it all wrong. But I think that was happening. So I think there was kind of all the thing. I remember The Office, the Ricky Gervais Office was on at the time, and that's important because Tim, the character in that, looked a bit like him, and his character was taking the mick out of the guy in the office who's always going to leave to go on to better things.
Right.
And that was me. Everybody was like, oh, it's like you, isn't it? You're going to go and do this thing. And I was like, oh, right, oh, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so there's that element. And yeah, something just clicked in my head. I can't quite remember why. But I started writing stuff as well. I started writing short stories. I discovered what I would... more modern literature, let's not be too silly, but rather than the stuff like 1984 where I thought it had to be dystopian and all this kind of stuff, or like you had to be James Joyce and spend hours going blind writing like a 1,000-page novel, I discovered stuff like Bret Easton Ellis and Paul Auster and like modern American authors, and not very fashionable to say because of all the controversy around him, but I discovered Woody Allen. Right. And I'd seen his films and was amused by his films, but I discovered his short stories and they were really, really funny. And that led me to Groucho Marx's short story, letters. And I suddenly discovered this world where you could be kind of edgy and cool with your Bret Easton Ellis's, and funny and witty with your Woody Allen's and Groucho Marx and stuff. And that spoke to me somehow. That kind of unlocked the world of literature a bit more. And I started reading properly. And I kind of just went crazy and started reading as much as I could. Whatever books in a book that were referenced, I would go and find those books and kind of follow that intertextual world, and just started doing that. Simultaneously, I started doing a short story, like 2-hour night class at the local college. And that was just, I have a tendency just to push myself in, put myself in situations. It's like speaking here tonight. Yeah. I'm rubbish at speaking. I'm speaking to you and what have you, and people are like, sure, Glenn, you're doing talks and you're in front of it. But I will go dry. I hate it. I struggle. It's a thing. But I dare myself to do it, and it's just how I do it, and you get away with it. I did the same with the night club. I just went, do you know, I'm going to just go and see what's going on here. And I was lucky that a guy, the teacher at the time, had just moved back to Grimsby and was doing his PGCE kind of thing. So he was quite young. We kind of got on as mates and had a beer and what have you. And I wrote a silly short story for that. Well, a couple of them for the various tasks. But the kind of main one, the class really loved. And he was like, you're quite good at this. Like, there's something here. What are you going to do about it? And I was like, well, nothing. I work for the council. I'm an auditor. I'm quickly searching for my 2.4 and the mortgage to kind of complete my life, and that's done. But he was like, no, there's something going on here. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then he said, well, they're doing a professional writing, is how it was termed, not creative writing, because it was at Grimsby College, or the Grimsby Institute, whatever it's called now, but because it was Grimsby, and because you can't have anything as creative as creative writing at the time, it had to have a vocational element to it. So it was professional writing, and you got a job at the end of it. Even though it was like theatre, graphic novels, and whatever. I mean, it wasn't really professional writing. I think one guy did a textbook for his final major project, but that was as professional as it got. But yeah, it was. So I was like, do you know what? Yes, let's do it. And my parents were very supportive. They thought I was mad and insane, but they obviously would have been able to see that I wasn't happy and something was not right, or whether I was just a spoiled brat and just said, I'm doing this. But I think it would have been a mutual thing. And I quit their job and got onto this degree course and studied professional writing for 3 years. And did really well and realised I kind of knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what it was called. So I didn't know that this was a certain technique, but I learned that over that time. But it was a weird experience, that college experience, because a lot of the people that didn't really want to be there. They were just doing a degree.
Right,
whereas I wanted to be there. So when they said, "Oh, can you write an essay about Kafka?" I was like, "Sure can, let's go for it." Where everybody's like, "Oh, whatever." So I was like a weird teacher's swap during those years because I wanted to be writing that stuff. So.
And with the night class, that was probably more for people who have a passion about writing, things
Yes.
like that. Whereas this, as you say, it was called professional writing.
Yeah.
Was there links to this is how you can use this within a career?
I'm thinking of, I'm seeing the guy, Chris, who ran it, and I don't want to undermine his time there. But no, is my answer. Because there probably was, maybe there was. Maybe I was idealistic and thought I could just write novels or become the book review for The Guardian, which was my loose plan.
Right.
And I realised that that's not something most people can do. But I don't really remember thinking, oh, this is the job. There was support, definitely. But what I do remember is that during the final year of that, I very quickly figured out that if I was going to do a job writing in Grimsby, it was for the Grimsby Evening Telegraph. That was the only words place there was. And I didn't want to be a journalist. I was very sure of that, and I've always been that way. I have no interest in being a journalist. So I subconsciously, we knew, and I say we as in my family supporting me, we knew I'd have to move away to get a writing job. I know we knew because I got a moped whilst I was still working at the local cinema, and there would be no rational reason to get a moped other than not to get a car, because I knew I had to move away at some point.
Okay.
Anyway, so no, it wasn't that thing, but what I did find during that time, and what is interesting, I think, is that I was desperately trying to get a junior writer's role of any description. And I applied for anything with junior writer or assistant or whatever on the thing. And I could, for love nor money, sound like some weird old man with that phrase, but I couldn't get an interview, could not get a single response, was struggling so much. I had weird circuitous calls where I'd go, "Hi there, I'm applying for this," and go, "Oh, you need 2 years experience." And I was like, well, this is the job where you get the 2 years experience.
Yes.
How do I get this job if I haven't got that? And I can remember one person, I think I've dramatised the story. It was a guy at The Guardian or something, it probably wasn't. But they laughed and went, "Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's a bit broken, isn't it?" I was like, yeah. Like, what do I do? And then luckily I got a job working at this company in London, and there was a madman on the other end of the line who saw the madman in me, and it connected, but it was like last ditch effort, kind of ready to give up. It was really hard at that time. And as far as copywriting goes, I mean, I had no idea that was even a job, what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I assumed writing was either journalism or pass go and go straight to reviewing books for The Guardian. That's as much as, or become a novelist kind of thing. I flirted with the idea of trying to go to the UEA down in Norwich for the master's course, but I kind of wanted to get a job and start getting on with things. I was obviously getting older. But it was weird. It was hard to get that job. I was very lucky to
Was that Agora?
That was Agora, yeah. So it just said writer, junior writer or something. And it was written, the ad was written by one of my first mentors, which was written in a very jokey way, which once I met him, I understood why, but it was kind of, you won't do anything, you'll make the tea, you'll be made to dress as a clown and all this kind of stuff. It was this really off-kilter thing.
Okay.
And
because they were financial.
They're a financial, yeah, this is the strange thing. And this is, I'm very lucky because they're a financial company, but their methods are very much more creative than you might think for a financial company. And this particular guy who was there was somewhat of an anomaly anyway within the company. And so he did this thing. I applied for it, and he said, all you have to do is don't send me a CV, don't send me any, I don't want to know what you've done, just want to see an example of your writing and sell me a suit in 500 words. So I remember being hungover, is the right way of saying that. Hungover, wrote a story about how Jesus got the job as Son of God, and he was a crack carpenter, but he happened to have a really nice suit. And when he saw the jobs wall in Jerusalem saying Son of God available, went into the interview, and God took a shining to his suit and said, if you give me the suit, you can have the job. So, and then my suit company had descended from the suit maker of that suit. So it was madness. And I look back on it now. It's so badly written. It's got you are and yours. People would just be ashamed of that work. But there was an idea in there. And interestingly, what I'd done was tell a story to sell rather than just go, my suit has got a very
features,
nice thing and all the features. So all the classic stuff that I didn't even know what I was doing. But this piqued the interest in this. The guy saw it and was like, this guy's thinking outside the box. And that's how I got the job. Completely madness. Got into Agora, and yes, it's a financial business and a financial company, but they are interested in ideas. And that's when that really, I was lucky that was my first entrance into the world of copy, because they're so led by ideas that the end result isn't what's important. It's the how do you explain that? Yes, we're going to sell an options service, but what's the idea behind that? It's no good to just say we're going to buy and sell options and naked puts and all this kind of stuff. You've got to express that in a way that people go, hey, that's interesting. So that was the whole thing that I learned there.
And how would that process work within the organisation? Was it a very collaborative process, or was it a go off and come up with ideas and come back with fiction?
It's changed and evolved over the years. At the beginning, it was all very much you kind of do as much research as you can, and then you just start kind of pitching ideas and what ifs. What if you said this? What if it was this? You were bombarded with useful techniques, I will say, which is essentially what I try and do in my talks now. But I've distilled, for me now, when I look back and think about it, the ones that stick are often the most simple and fundamental, which everybody repeats. But I guess when it's good, you're meant to repeat it. But the idea that you're talking to someone over a bar, or like this. Every piece of copy that you write should be talking to a friend, as you should talk as you would normally. So none of this hyperbolic or weird grammar stuff. People don't speak in full sentences. People don't go, hey Bob, 1,000% off this thing. It's like, hey, do you know there's some money off this thing over here or whatever? So that stuck early on for how you would think about that. But then it was just a case of watching and reading, and there was never any clear, this is how you do it. You just had to observe things and then just be weird. I've come along and kind of distilled it from my teaching, if you like, or my preaching, is that you just got to be weird and silly and see what comes out.
And you mentioned earlier that the guy who employed you you regard him as one of your mentors.
Yeah.
How important would you say that mentors have been throughout your career?
So mentors is a really weird thing, and I think it's only kind of been picked up by us in the UK over the past few years, or rather by a wider audience. There are people in the UK who use that kind of language, and I would never previously have kind of referred to mentors, but then Agora being an American company and being exposed to that world, it's just become more like that with modern people like Gary Vee and all this kind of stuff. That language is now much more widely used. But I think they're really important, and I didn't realise that. I didn't realise that until I probably started being referred to as a mentor. So I would employ young copywriters, which always sounds like some weird Fagin thing, but I had a team that I grew and would mentor, and these young guys would come to me and say, oh man, that's so useful, thanks for doing that, thank you. And I'm thinking, that's my job. Like what you're talking about, but I didn't see it like that. I didn't realise actually I'm your mentor. I'm showing you this kind of stuff. So vice versa. Now I look back and there's probably about 5 or 6 people in my copywriting days. There was people before that, even people at the council have had an influence on me. But yeah, I think it's really important.
It's more like retrospectively.
Yeah, I didn't realise. Again, I consider myself lucky in. Yeah, of course you've got to do stuff and drive yourself, but there are elements of luck in life, and I can look with hindsight and go, oh, I had mentors without realising it. They were effectively mentoring me at that time. When I joined Agora, I was very lucky that the owner and his main partner, who had essentially founded the business, were in the UK. Tasked with kind of getting the writing team in the UK up to scratch, and so my timing was perfect because it meant I got essentially mentored by the people who owned it, so like the highest level of the Agora world, which was very unique and very very lucky. So that was a really good thing seeing them. But then my actual like line manager boss kind of thing, they taught me so much about marketing and the wider picture more than just writing, which now I understand has served me far more successfully than I ever kind of knew it. I knew I needed to do it and know it, but now I can do weird marketing things where I'll sell out an event in a few hours because of that teaching there. So that was really useful. So yeah, I think mentorship is really, really good, and it should be encouraged more. We just need to probably find a more English way of doing it.
Because I
do struggle with that word.
Yeah, it's very funny that you mentioned that, because I was at an event when I was at uni, and it was all about enterprise and stuff like that, and I was sat in the room and they were talking about mentors. And I'd had a mentor when I was at sixth form, but it was very formal. You apply to have a mentor and they get assigned to you kind of thing. And I remember hearing about these people and all the mentors they had and stuff, and I was just Amanda point, how do you get a mentor?
Yeah.
And they were like, they kind of laughed and they went, well, you don't like ask them out on a date. It's not like, will you be my mentor?
Yeah, but it's interesting. So there's a brilliant woman called Vicky Ross who is kind of the UK copywriting industry's kind of queen at the moment, and she does a mentorship program. I don't know if she still does it, but I know she did a mentorship program with a kind of enterprise in London where it was for young creative females, and she got sent like a list of 5 people who wanted to be mentored, and she was like, well, I can't pick between them, so she ended up doing them all. But what she learned from that, and I think what's interesting, and when I say you need to kind of probably change the way we perceive it, mentoring someone is hard. To do it properly, if you want to take the time, as I've been learning more and more every day, time is the most important asset we have, and you have to value your time. You have to understand what you're getting out of your time from a business sense, but also so you can pair that with your social life and the important things in life. But to just be a mentor, it's like, oh yeah, can you show me how to do this? It's a lot to give up to like properly like take the time to care about someone.
Yeah.
There's great benefits because you learn and see other people. You see that, and I was going to say younger, but it doesn't need to be someone younger. It can be someone older than you, like guide. But that other person has fresh eyes, which you can get benefit out of as well. So it's a real two-way thing when it works properly. It's something I'm trying to. I get so many emails from people asking me to, oh, do you mentor? Do you do copy coaching stuff? And I need to figure out a way to be able to deliver that better. That's kind of one of my next main projects, aside from the silly, weird stuff that I do. But that I would like to do, but I'm not doing it consciously because I'm very aware that I want to do it properly. I don't want to leave people hanging. But it's hard. But it is something I think I would encourage people to try. But yeah, we need to find a better way of doing it.
Yeah. So Agora, you worked your way up. You said you had a team by the time you left. Was there a point where you thought, I want to do my own thing? I want to be my own boss, that kind of thing?
I always... Agora is a brilliant company in the sense that they immediately teach you independence.
Right.
And you're very much left to your own devices. And it's
It's quite entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it's a rare company in that respect. I've worked in kind of consulted for different companies and watched them and seen going, well, that's why you're not getting the most out of your staff there. They're just clocking in, clocking out. Agora, you kind of live the job and you're in it and you're part of it, and that's so you're always given this entrepreneurial spirit, and I didn't realise I had it until I went there. So I'm very thankful to all the people there who encouraged that. So I kind of always knew I'd want to do something. I was told many, many times by many, many people that you should be doing this yourself anyway. Deep down, I knew I always wanted to write books and do that kind of thing. I can't say I knew definitely what I wanted to be or do, and I still can't say that, but I have loose kind of weird, very specific but strange ambitions, and then kind of think, well, how could I get to that? And I think in that respect, and I don't like planning too much. I'm not a strong suit for me, but I think because I didn't know where I wanted to go, I didn't do it fast enough because I didn't have a clear end goal. I was just kind of going along.
Did you do like side projects while you were working? Or?
A little bit, but I think if you're doing something, you've got to do it full. And I kind of started my website on the side, but that was really more to kind of figure out how to do stuff. I was writing a daily email for Agora, which advised people on how to like start home businesses and all this kind of stuff. And I was very much aware that if I was writing and advising people that I don't want to just be I've researched it and figured done it. I wanted to live it and be able to say, well, this is what I figured out. Here's how to do it. So I started doing that for that, and then that later became useful when I went freelance. But I didn't ever know this is where I want to go. I just have these kind of vague ambitions, and then I wanted to write. I want to write and create stuff, I think. I just like creating stuff. And I'm not, as much as I've seemed to have worked in finance for a long time, and still do, and I still have that skill and that knowledge base, so I exploit that and use it for various companies, but I wanted to get further out than that, and luckily that's what being freelancers allow me to do, is all that kind of crazy stuff.
So when you started, would you say you started as a copywriter?
Yes. Technically, I'll always remember Chat Fedash said, look, you can either be an editor and write the content, or you could be a copywriter and write the sales material. He said, have a go at both, see which one you want to do.
Right, okay.
Now, whether because I wanted to do both, whether because he was useless at organisation and never actually followed up and saying, let's make a decision, serendipitously, because I did both, I carried on doing both, and I learned how to do the content and the copy. I think that's essential, and I latterly taught other people both, because I think if you're going to sell stuff, you need to understand what you're selling, and it speaks to that kind of produce the product and sell the product. It gives you that thing. So I didn't know I was specifically going to be a copywriter, but I did know the copy bit was the selling side of things. Over time, I leant towards the copy side of things, particularly because in finance, I didn't want to learn about how to sell a naked put or something. I wanted to figure out how to persuade someone to buy a service that would be advising you on that. So I skewed towards the copy side, and that's where my real training pushed, if you like. Yeah. But I always kept that side of the editorial and how to engage with customers, but it's very similar in that respect.
And it's obviously grown to more than just a copywriting service. You've got your book, podcast, things like that. So in terms of that idea of having a book, a podcast, doing speaking events, it links in something I'm quite interested in, which is personal branding. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think you'd be trying to make a name for yourself or the business?
I genuinely, and it's one of these things, I'm sure people listening will be like, yeah, whatever he says, you say these things. I'm incredibly grateful, is the first thing I've got to say, that I am even considered a person that is like known by people that don't know me. Like
Yeah.
that, it's just weird and strange and thing, but it's brilliant because it's nice. People are nice, like,
Yeah.
and there is niceness in the world. And if you give, people generally receive and are grateful for it. So that's all very good. Personal branding, yeah, it's become a thing where I'm like a brand now, and it's like dead weird. I'm conscious of it. I play it. I'll play the game, like. But at the same time, I'm very keen to be myself as much as possible and to not let the two blur. I'm thinking of like Stuart Lee now, of like saying like the character of Stuart Lee versus the thing.
Yeah.
Is there a character of Glenn Fisher? To an extent, yes, but I'm pretty close to how I hopefully show myself in public.
Yeah.
I put a mask on for doing a talk.
Yeah.
Because I have to, because otherwise I'd be like drying out and shivering in a mess on the floor. So that's a different part of me. But generally, it's how I present myself. I'm doing a kind of live experiment to see how far I can go. So I'm working on a project at the moment, which is a small little like chat book thing, which I do the podcast, I interview all these people. My dog is one of the characters on that and speaks. So I'm going to interview him, and the book will be the Pablo interview with him.
Okay.
So I'm now writing up this, which is silly and thingy, but that's, as Ruth, my partner, will attest to, I am an annoyingly immature and silly person. Like, she will go, no, and it's usually because she knows I'm about to start singing a song or essentially performing like a Muppet. She mentioned the other day, she was like, you actually like move like a Muppet, don't you? And I was like, yeah, sometimes I do, kind of thing. So all of that stuff, like if you see silliness from me, it's genuine and what have you. In personal branding, yeah, it's one of those things you've got to set, like, I've become an asset. This in business, you probably shouldn't. Like, good businessmen and women don't become the brand themselves. Richard Branson, Virgin Airways is not really to do with Richard Branson. He can go home at night and not worry about it. So because I've got that much business now, I know this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
I've got to the verge now where, thankfully, a lot of people want to work with me and do stuff, and I appear to be quite good at what I'm doing. So people want to work with me, but then that's now getting to the point where I've only got so much time and what have you. So I'm really considering how I go from being a person to a company.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that yet.
I wonder just a thing to ponder, but potentially if you were the head of copy at Agora, would the head of copy at Agora written a book and had a podcast?
No, well, this is the thing. Like, the world of Agora is very different in the sense that the type of copy they do and the type of products they sell is very niche, but it's very profitable.
Yes.
And generally, if you get that right, you don't need to exist. Like, you can make a lot of money without worrying about things. However, you work within a bubble. So you like some of the best copywriters in the world, no one knows who they are. Like, I do, because I know the inside of it, but you've never heard of them. And they're far more successful than what are considered successful people in the world. I'm interviewing more and more successful, in inverted commas, people, and I think, well, actually, that copyright that no one knows about in Agora is better than you at this, but they're fine to do that. So there is a certain selfish, like, self-promotional thing where it's like when you step out of that, you kind of go onto a different level of things. So I've not figured that out. All I know is everything that has happened so far, I wouldn't have changed because I wouldn't have been in the position I am, but also the person I am.
I think as
and
well.
That's the thing that I think is important to appreciate all of those elements.
Yeah, as well with like small businesses where the service is us. Like, I do social media management. Like, the people deal with me. It's not a service that they log on to and use. They use. I am producing the service.
Yeah.
There almost needs to be that relationship with people as well.
That I mean, it's just, there's a really there's a lot of different really clever people. Like, in the business world that I linked up to through Agora, who I kind of almost keep their ideas in my mind whilst like seeing how can I apply it on a really small scale, like just me bumbling along in the world. So it's a bit of a merge, but like it's dead weird. Like I'm doing work for like big agency names now, which is like a thing that I never thought. So I was always in the direct response world, which is Agora is a direct response copywriting business. I won't go into it; it gets complicated, and I've got to do it in an hour anyway. But direct response is getting the credit card out of the bottom of the page. Indirect is your brand, so it's like, oh, I've seen that brand, I might go and buy them back there. So I've always worked in the direct response world. I wrote the book to kind of say, look, all these tricks and tactics you can use in the branding world as well, and you can use in the online world and all this kind of stuff. Now, ironically, I'm sat there with brands and what have you, and I always hated the word brands and stuff like that. But now I'm working with brands and doing all this thing. I'm not too big-headed enough to go, all right, that's interesting. There's elements to this side and the indirect side that are really useful and that we're missing on the other side. But vice versa, there's bits in there. So I'm again straddling this position, which is working really well at the moment. Hopefully, the feedback I've had is that I'm bringing some direct response stuff into that world, and that seems to be working quite nicely. So there's always different things. The one lesson, and it comes back to the personal branding thing, is you've got to figure out what you want to do first of all, and how you want to be. Like I could go and launch an agency, have it as you will get Glenn Fisher grade copy. It might be written by a baboon in like a different place, and then I edit it or what have you. But that could be a thing I could do. But do I want to do that? Like part of the reason I left Agora was because I was running things rather than writing.
Yes,
and my writing is my skill, and my ideas are my writing is my skill. My ideas are my feet. It sounds like some kind of but yeah, you've got to make these decisions, and if you're happy where you are, understand that and run with that, because half the people out there are not, and they want to be, but they haven't got the means. I've got the means to be happy. That's how I see it. And it would be disrespectful to everybody who is struggling for me to go, oh, actually, I want a bit more. and kind of go down and see, it's like, no, I'm quite happy with this. I'll take that. That's cool. So, and that seems to kind of attract niceness as well.
So in terms of the book, it's got some good little things that catch people's eye in terms of bestseller.
Yep.
Was it nominated for Best Business Book?
Best Business Book, yeah.
These incredible things.
Yeah.
How did that all come about, this book? Was it you self-publishing?
Pure chance. I got a publisher, Harriman House, and I was conscious I wanted to get a publisher.
Yeah, it was your idea to do a book.
Yeah, I've wanted to do a book, and I've been kind of putting it on and off for years, trying to figure out how to do something. And I was trying, piece of advice, I was overcomplicating things. And I was going, it's got to be this. It's got to be like this magnum opus that I come out with and do this thing. And it wasn't that in the end. It was, I've got all of this writing. That all looks kind of like a book. If I just glue this bit here and write this new bit here and write this bit here, that's a book. And then when you go through the editing process, it's like, I don't even know what book that is anymore. It's a really weird process. Right. Like you lose track of it. It's like, is that a thing? Did I write that? But yeah, so I found a way, and I was like, right, I think I've got a book here with some of the stuff I already had written. And then I knew I wanted a publisher for the simple reason that I could have self-published, knew how to sell it, could have sold it through direct response sales letter means that I'd learned in Agora and what have you. But I wanted for myself a completely cold person to come in and go, we think this is worth publishing. I support self-publishing. I think it's really useful and more people should and can do it. But I needed that second voice to say.
You said knowing yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just wanted that thing. I wanted that credibility. So I got a publisher. I kind of knew Harriman House a little bit, but just pure chance. It was like on LinkedIn or something. I think I'd seen they'd followed me or something. Said, "Oh, I've got a book," and they went, "Oh, I'd be interested in that." And I think probably that day I was like, "Yes, I've got a publisher." Then 2 hours later, I get an email going, "Yeah, if you could just fill in this proposal." And it was a hard slog going through that. I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
Because I learned a whole different world of like the publishing world. I've been working in publishing. I've published books for financial authors, but I'd never done it to this degree, and it was a great experience. So that kind of went through that. I was very thankful to Harriman House and Craig, who edited it. He was fantastic. The whole editing process was really useful. But yeah, I kind of bumbled that together. And then it was like, oh God, now this is like represents you, and it's like really weird and thing. But then you're constantly learning to kind of understand who you are and what you produce necessarily doesn't reflect who you are. And this kind of weird stuff. But I knew it was good. I was going to add ish, but no, I thought it was good, and I knew the work was there, and I knew I'd put enough into it and enough care into it. But now I've gone through that process. Like now I can create more, and it was like being given permission to be an author, which was like really weird. It's like, oh no, I am an author. Like, I'm on Amazon. Like that was a weird thing for me. I was like still in that kind of self-denial, imposter syndrome stuff where it's like, oh, no, I think people can claim you published. Like, like when are you going to like admit that? And I was like, oh yeah, good point. So since then, like the book I'm writing at the moment is completely different in style and kind of how I put it together. But yeah, I would just, anybody who wants to do that kind of stuff, don't try and overcomplicate it. Like, just stick to one idea is like the ultimate piece of advice. But yeah, I think I could have spent a lot of time waiting for the best thing that would have never have come. So there was a point where I had to kind of go, no, this is the book as this book is. I'll write another one if people don't like that, and kind of move on. And I think that I imagine I'm probably not alone in that kind of like holding on to the creative thing and going, oh no, let it go, let it sit and carry on doing more stuff kind of thing.
I think as well, when you just mentioned at the end where people are telling you, no, you've done it, you've become a publisher, speaking to other people and something, not really been pulled out a specific thing in the podcast so far, but that idea that no one really has that moment where it's like, I'm a publisher. No, it's like such a gradual process that it takes somebody to say to you, look how far you've come into it.
It reminds me of Ruth was telling me, I've not read it myself, but it's the magician Darren Brown.
Oh, right, yeah.
He's written a book called Happiness. I've not read it, but he writes, or she tells me, I mean, she might be lying to me, but she told me about a passage in that where he was saying he's like a famous magician now. He's like, it's Darren Brown, everybody knows who he is, but he got there and he achieved it, and then the next day he was like, what now? Like, I've done that, and that kind of that was even more anxious the next day because it's like, oh, I've done that now, and my book's just like been out for a year, like literally the other day, and there is an anxiety in me going, oh right, like I've got to do another one. Like, when people joke and laugh and go, oh yeah, you say that, and it's like, no, I've got to like do another thing, and you're always creating because I've got this creative desire. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know. I'm doing there's bits that I've got planned over the next couple of months that people know about. Like, I'm doing a live show of the podcast with characters. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just made it up, and now I'm interviewing Rory Sutherland at Ogilvy at the head offices, and 50 people bought tickets in a few hours, which is mental and mad. But I'll do it. But there's all that kind of stuff. And Ruth's going, oh my God, you're going to be so like stressed. And then I'll go, oh, I'm going to do this. And she went, can you just stop? Like, what are you doing? And I'm going, no, I'm going to do this. And there's all these other things, but I just have this desire to create this stuff. Yeah. So I don't think you ever figure it. It's like, I played in bands all my life, and the bands that I played with, some of them have become famous now. To me, they're still the same people. You can't see it when it's that close to you. So you definitely can't see it in yourself. Like, I'm speaking tonight, I don't know, however many people, 20 people or whatever. My mum has no idea what's going on. Do you know what I mean? I'm speaking at Copyright Conference in London next week. I think it's like sold out, 200 odd people. Like, and half of them are going, oh, I can't wait to meet Glenn Fisher. Like, what are you on about? Glenn Fisher's me. Like, there is no Glenn Fisher. There's just this guy from Grimsby that is audacious that I'm even doing this, but you never know that truly. And this is like the lowest level of like any like fame or anything. It's like I'm not on like BBC or anything, but it's just like it's still that weird thing, but you don't notice it. Like it's just a weird thing.
It's like when you're a kid and you're growing up, and like your parents never go, "Oh, you've grown 3 inches," or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but when you go see an auntie or a grandma, it's like, "Oh, you've shot up," and it's that idea of you're always on this treadmill and you're always creating.
My partner Ruth is an artist, and she hates saying she's an artist. It's like, stop telling people I'm an artist. And it's like, well, you are an artist. You produce art. You sell art. Like you are an artist.
Yep.
But we both have it where she's like, Glenn, you've done all this. Like, stop worrying.
Yeah.
But I'm going, oh no, I'm not doing anything. And at the same time, I'm going, Ruth, you sold all this stuff, like people love it. And he's like, oh no. And I'm going, it's exactly the same thing. But I think everybody with a creative element to their life, and that's in all across business. Like people think creativity can't be there in business. They think it's like, oh no, unless you're kind of wearing a flouncy outfit and throwing mud at the wall and going, you're not creative. You can be creative in business and still have that drive to find ways to be creative in what you're doing. And if you've got that, you've got to keep doing it and not stop.
Yeah, and it's, for example, I put out, I think it was 1st of October 2018, I put out about finding guests for my first ever, I just had this idea of a podcast. I was like, can I find guests? Anyone can help me? And then in February I released it. Well, people from the outside look at that and go, he didn't have a podcast. He did have a podcast.
Yeah.
They don't see the bit in between where it's gradually become an idea. I got my first guest, did the first interview, got the second, third, fourth, then edited them, and then they don't see that progression.
Yeah, I mean, I like. There's two things there interesting. I like the process of showing you're working out to a certain extent. I think it's useful. I think if people watch what I do, you can watch what I do, not necessarily what I'm saying, but how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like I went to sell out this live show. I had a very clear plan in my mind how to do that. And did a launch sequence that I'd planned. I'd written all the kind of thing. And then I had a moment where I dawned on it, because it began as an audacious thing. I genuinely didn't know if it would fly. And I was like, I don't know if people are going to get away, if I'm going to get away with doing this. But I'd had some really good feedback. Some people I trusted had asked about it, and they were like, yeah, no, this is really good. I think you should do this. But I'd done that. And then I think I popped into my mum to give her the usual kind of, I'm still alive, don't worry, freelance life is fine. But I'd kind of thought, well, I want to sell it out now. But if you'd have watched what I actually did it was a very clear thing. Now I can tell you, talking the talk tonight, I try and give a framework of how you can spot things. But we go, oh God, I wish I knew how to do that. Like, how do you launch a podcast from things? Like, watch what I'm doing. I'm showing you literally how to do it. So I like that. The other idea about that is like understanding where you've come. So you're saying like, oh, I was thinking about doing this and then I'm here. It's good to have people who can tell you that and say like, you've come to that point. And it's good to listen to those people as well. And like, without being too self-congratulatory, you need to tell yourself sometimes, hey, I've done quite good here. Like that was, I'll have 2 minutes of clapping and then like, let's move on. But do take the time to enjoy that, because all too often it's gone and then you'd be panicking about something else the next week. And we're very anxious people in our house, and we have to remind ourselves all the time, it's okay. Like, take some fun and enjoy this kind of thing.
I think I had my celebration of having been a freelancer for 12 months, 14 months in, because I just kept putting it off. You know,
well, that's 60 days to pay the invoices.
So just quickly, we'll come on to how people find you through social media and your website right at the end. But the podcast, just want to give a brief overview of what that is.
So the All Good Copy podcast, I launched it in December last year, so it's just about coming up to a year anniversary. I used to do a thing in Agora where I did a copy call every Tuesday for the team, and I would talk to someone in the company about copy. So I've always just loved talking about this thing. And then the world of podcasts is the world of podcasts. It's become this massive thing. But I just thought, actually, I'd like to do something like this still. I'd like to continue this, and started talking to other copywriters in the world. And so that started. And then I also wanted to I saw a potential that I could use that as a creative outlet. So I do characters or some music or a sketch or something in it and break it up like that, which I've gone over. I think I've done 20 episodes now, and if you were to kind of scan them all, it's just got increasingly silly. To which the introduction to the last episode was 4 minutes and 33 of silence, where my dog performed John Cage's orchestral track. Of course, it wasn't silence, it was me whispering over it, with questioning the fact that we should do that. But stuff like that is where I've found a way to be creative in that. But also on the episode was an interview with Cindy Gallop, who's this fabulous woman in New York who worked for the biggest agencies in the world, is pushing all these things. And thankfully, I've got some amazing interviews lined up with even more famous, in inverted commas, people. But also, I pretty much mix it, so there'll be half famous, well-known people and half working people. So the way I describe it is just freelancers like me who are just sat there in Leeds doing their work, but their opinions, their creative process, their thoughts, their backstory, I find as valid as anyone else's, because they're probably going to be the people in the future who are going to be the big names. So I try and do that mix and make it a bit of a community thing. It's just an opportunity to talk to people. I enjoy it. I love it. And as we were saying before we started recording, the whole podcast format and the interview format allows you to possibly find a gem of originality in something that you say, because you're making it up. Yes, you go through the old riffs, but some people might listen to one podcast who haven't listened to another one, so that's good that you do that. But then it is quite an authentic, natural thing, and I think I enjoy listening to it. It's content that I listen to the podcasts that I do, not in a kind of narcissistic, oh, my voice is beautiful way, in listening to the guests, because I enjoy it. When you're in the podcast, you're not really listening to it fully. You're engaging, but you're thinking, right, how do I segue into that next bit kind of thing. So I continue making that. I've got up to about episode 40 booked now, with some stupidly good guests. Well, they're all good guests, but some stupid people. I'm like, how am I speaking to this person?
Yeah.
Which is really nice, and more people seem to be enjoying it. Doing a live show version, which should be interesting if that works, as I see it in my mind, and I don't collapse into a heap on the floor. Then I will take that around the country and interview a local person, but do the live show around it. So that's my plan there. Will I make the Edinburgh Festival? We can only see.
Yeah.
But that is a vague thing that I've kind of gone, yeah, why not? Let's try that. But that's how I kind of work in my ambitions now. But yeah, so we're aiming for that in the next 2 years.
So just to finish on, and use that phrase again, inverted commas, quick fire questions. Just before that I'm finishing, I ask everyone these questions just so there's some kind of round up at the end that's common thread. But who or what has been your biggest inspiration throughout your career?
Who has been my biggest?
Who or what? It could be something.
Who or what?
Yeah.
The spoon now. Who has been my biggest inspiration? Oh dear, it's one of those questions, isn't it? Who has inspired me? It's different people at different stages, really. It's a tough question. Of course, my dear old mum has helped me enormously at times when I was doing silly things, and supported me, knew that I would hit various challenges and anticipated those and helped me through them. So she's been very helpful. Inspiring, I don't know. I always, my mind's going to Ruth, but that's far too twee. I do really like my partner. She does make me think in different ways. But inspiring, I guess, I know I will say Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, because I love not just the Muppets themselves, but the philosophy, the creative mind that Jim Henson. I've read a lot of books about Jim Henson. He was a bit of a strange character actually, but he's inspired me a lot. We'll go with Jim Henson. That's quite interesting.
Brilliant. And then, what is the biggest learning from your career? So, really, the reason I say this is because I used to ask, what's your top tip for someone who wants to do what you want to do? And a lot of people were saying, well, I kind of made it up as I went. Yeah. So what's your biggest learning?
My learning?
Yes.
My biggest learning, the most important thing I've learned is you've got to be yourself. It's such a, I don't want to swear because we've gone through without swearing, but it's such a silly, cliched thing. But as everything, as I'm discovering in life, in copywriting, in business, it's always the cliches. The problem is people don't actually do them or follow them. So I guess you could say have the discipline to follow your own advice and stuff. But being yourself for me has reaped massive rewards. And the times when I've not been myself, be that in business, in work, in love, in friendship, in things, if you've not been yourself, it kind of tends to go wrong. If you are, then anybody who rejects that, it's not your problem, kind of thing.
You've kind of answered the second question, the next question, the third question in one there, which was what's one tip for success in building your personal brand? In
building your personal brand, be yourself is a good thing. Be nice as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I've still got the slide in my presentation, but at one point I think I'd be nice because, again, it's just stupid cliche, but if you're nice, it does tend to show people do come back and be nice to you. So.
And then on the theme of reflection, which we've slightly discussed earlier, what is the best moment in your career to date? In
my career, okay, so we can get rid of all the kind of soppy emotional moments in my romantic life and all that kind of stuff. In my career, the best moment. There is a lot. I've been really lucky, particularly over the past 2 years, with all this stuff. But I guess the most recent in my mind, if I dug further, I'm sure I'll find other nice. Oh, that's a nice moment. But I think seeing myself on Amazon and seeing that book with it, where it's it's not just. So I'd done a shit series of short stories before, which were I'd done myself and what have you, but this was another company had put me onto Amazon and I was an actual thing there, independent of me. That was pretty good. I was quite happy with that. And that's probably more meaningful than the kind of, I was happy to do this live thing and all this lot. But that was good. I also remember, because of me, I'm doing a talk tonight. I did a talk in Grimsby at a little coffee shop there, River Red Coffee, which is a great independent coffee shop run by an old school friend. But I did a talk there as a test to see if I could do it.
Okay.
And I was very much anticipating falling flat on my face and dying. I had 3 bottles of water lined up in case I dried out and what have you. And I had Ruth there to watch me in case it was the most awful thing and I should never get out of the room again. But I did that and I think an hour in I was like, oh no, I can do it. And that was yes, we're on to something here. That's okay. So that was a good moment. But I think probably the book, megalomaniac moment of going, this is it.
Yeah. I'm
a real person.
So brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
If people want to find out more about you and All Good Copy, how do they do that? Socials website?
You can go allgoodcopy.com, which has everything on there, and some articles and what have you, links to the podcast. You can find me on Twitter mostly, at allgoodcopy. On Instagram, mainly pictures of my dog, but that's Glenn.Fisher with 2 N's. But if you go on allgoodcopy.com or the self-aggrandizing theglenfisher.com. It's just because you can get the domain, I can't get Glen Fisher.
That's exactly the same for me.
but yeah, you can go there and find that. But you can generally find me. I think I am now the most famous Glen Fisher. There was a Canadian ice hockey player who was returning on Google higher than me, but I think I've done more than him now. But if he wins like an ice hockey trophy, I'm screwed. But yeah, no, you can generally find me.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Well, that was another brilliant guest on the My Journey podcast to kick off this batch of interviews. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to Glenn as much as I did interviewing him. A quick thanks to Glenn for agreeing to be on the podcast. He came up early before a talk he did for another project I'm involved in, which is called Creative Point. You can find out more about that on my social media, where I'm always keen to hear feedback about the podcast from you guys. If you have any comments or ideas for future guests, just drop me a message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm at TheMJSocial on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and if you search Matt Johnson on LinkedIn, I should pop up. But until next time, thanks for listening.